Good morning. It's Can We Talk? Robin Hensel is here with lots of information on Theresa Skorseth. And let's get started with a reminder that next week will be the 45th anniversary of the Kent State incident, in which the National Guard aggressed on students at Kent State University who were conducting a protest about the U.S. invasion of Cambodia during the Vietnam War. 13 students were injured, 4 were killed. So 45 years ago, it just seems like yesterday to me. And now we've got more issues of the National Guard being held in reserve in Baltimore, I understand.
Yes, the governor activated the National Guard yesterday, I believe, in response to the protests that are going on there to do with, I don't know if it's Black Lives Matter. I actually was busy researching documents last night, didn't have a time to turn even on the news, but there's lots of stuff going on, some rioting there. There's peaceful protestation going on there as well, but in response to some squad cars and damage to property there, I understand that the governor activated the National Guard there. So just reminiscent of years gone by, let's hope that everyone is safe there.
Let's hope nobody dies.
And Theresa and I are not in favor of
Militarization of peacekeeping.
well, that, and the other thing is we're not in favor of violence on the streets in response to
Oh, no, of course.
abuse of police power or anything else. Just to
No,
clarify that.
Yeah.
So, last evening, I started or continued my research of this document, the range regulation of Camp Ripley for 2015. It's titled the 2015 CRTC Range Regulation, the Warrior's Choice, Colonel St. Sauveur, Garrison Commander, State of Minnesota Department of the Army, Camp Ripley. It's dated October 1st, 2014. It is an unclassified document. I encourage you to look it up yourself, scour it for yourself, see what you can find in there. Don't believe me, believe the documents that I'm presenting. So before we get started on that topic, what's actually going on out at Camp Ripley, I just want to quickly mention that I found this last night online in doing some research for some other stuff, that the Minneapolis City Council approved a new sister city in Somalia.
Oh.
And they're the only Somalian connection with a sister city. It says the Minneapolis City Council was to approve a new sister city relationship with Bosaso, Somalia. Minneapolis is the first city in America to forge such a relationship with a city in Somalia. The council adopted a resolution that noted Minneapolis had the largest Somali American community in the nation, and that establishing a relationship with Bosaso, and I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, I apologize if it's not, would open up a number of economic and cultural connections. Now, I also discovered this document. That was dated 2014, by the way, October of last year. There is a contest right now that's going on. The theme of this year's International Sister Cities organization is Connecting Communities for Peace and Prosperity. Now, I have to say that in all of the years, the 4 years that Theresa and I have been tracking and involved with going to most of the meetings, or if not almost all of the meetings for the sister city when they were connected with the city of Little Falls, and I have never heard the word peace or promoting peace talked about with our Little Falls group. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice way to say it. If the mission of the Sister City International is to promote peace, why in the world wasn't this group, or isn't this group, to date, talking about peace? Especially when this city almost removed and took down the the flag of France over at the L'Auberger Park before and around the time of the illegal invasion of Iraq. You remember that?
Oh, because of all of the peevishness everybody was feeling about France not joining.
Well, France was against the United States' illegal invasion of Iraq for very good reasons. And a lot of people in this Little Falls and Morrison County area were for taking down the L'Auberger France flag. Now you would think that because of that, plus the mission statement of the Sister Cities International is to promote peace. Why in the world weren't they talking about that? Here they have two of the most outspoken peace activists, probably in the state of Minnesota, but for sure in this area, and they never connected the dots with us. We could work well with that group. We should be promoting peace with them. They should be joining us in our peace activities. I just really kind of don't get it. But anyways,
I don't either. But I never have understood that whole business.
Here's what it says. There's a contest for young people. It says Sister Cities International aims to promote peace through mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation, one individual, one community at a time. This year's theme, Connecting Communities for Peace and Prosperity, celebrates Sister Cities International mission. Sister Cities International founder, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, reasoned that by becoming friends, people of different cultures could celebrate and appreciate differences. If people connect across national boundaries and get to know each other, their mutual respect and understanding can transform diplomatic relations and foster peace and prosperity. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. But I really, I don't want to criticize, but I'd like to encourage this sister city group to get off their duffs and start promoting peace and do what their big sister city international group is encouraging them to do. Because just having a cup of coffee and schmoozing with the upper class people that can afford to travel with that group isn't doing anything really to promote peace, in my opinion.
Well, everybody probably feels peaceful while they're doing it.
Right.
But it doesn't make a difference to the situation in the world at large.
I mean, really, to talk about prosperity, we have to talk about poverty.
We have to talk about justice.
You know, there's a lot to be said that could be done, that should be done with this local group in conjunction with that peace mission this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully they'll take up that mantle and head off with it and do the right thing. Okay, maybe you want to read this little part here to start us off?
Okay, so this is about police activity, where police departments treat protesters as sinister enemies, seeing themselves as protective warriors, problems proliferate. Drone technology desensitizes the task of policing, focusing less on public safety than police security. The machine imperative in this regard neuters human judgment.
So what I want our group locally to, and I'm encouraging people in the metro area and even at the international level now with the help of some pretty renowned friends of mine, that we connect the dots between the Black Lives Matter movement, the economic and social justice groups that are prolific throughout the United States, and the peace activist movement, all those groups coming together to connect the dots that it is all interconnected. And part of the reason we have the over-militarization of the police on the streets is because of what's happening overseas and the aggressive nature of our military, endless war, and the lack of conscience associated with the military anymore. You know, drones and drone warfare has, and even now the move towards robotic killing and robotic drone usage, whether it be through swarms or any other, there's a number of different mechanisms that the military has plans to use, takes away the conscience part, the Jiminy Cricket. If their human conscience isn't involved in everything that they do,
if they're not even present on the scene. You know, that's the thing about drones that I find most discouraging. It's such a distancer. You're in Nevada, the people you're killing are in Afghanistan. How much do you feel that? You know, you're not even there.
Well, there still are effects of PTSD that are happening to our drone flyers, our drone pilots. But the whole move of drones and drone warfare desensitizes our entire military, I believe. And it also desensitizes and moves away the national conscience of our people to what's really happening. That we are, as a nation, allowing innocent civilians, children, moms, grandmothers, gatherings for all types, slaughtered in other nations, and we're allowing this. Online, I watch a lot of other activism to do with PETA groups and inhumane things being done to animals, and there's a huge reaction online to that. Sometimes that's even more overwhelming and more prolific than what's happening with our drones. And that I just question what is going on with our national conscience and our desensitizing. No mother or grandmother in their right mind is going to not be opposed to what's happening. And Theresa and I believe I can speak on behalf of Theresa, you can clarify me if I'm wrong.
I'm sure you'll be right.
As a mom and a grandmother, 4 years ago when I began my activism, I could be silent no more. And when I think about how much things have changed, even in that 4-year time, for the negative, I'm absolutely astounded that there isn't more of an outpouring of people, especially locally. I mean, I don't understand why, before the Iraq invasion, there was a group of 40 to 50 people that marched across the Lamberger Bridge here in opposition to the illegal invasion that was forthcoming of Iraq. Whatever happened to all those people? Why have they been so silent during this time? If it was indeed, or if it still is related to my lawsuit, shame on anyone who feels that they have to distance themselves from opposing endless war and the slaughtering of innocent people in other countries because of that. Now that may sound really harsh, but I don't understand why people locally have stopped being active. I don't understand that.
Well, I think, the longer something drags on, the harder it is to show up for every protest against it. We've been doing this for 13 years now? We've been at war someplace or another, and I think that we've lost our ability to feel sharply involved. When it first happened, the initial invasion of Iraq, everybody was sort of on the edge of their chair. Wow, what is this going to mean? How is this going to work? What are we doing? Well, then it became clear what we were doing. We're just in there doing the usual business, killing everybody we could see. So, I'm sorry.
Shock and awe.
Shock and awe, yeah.
Interesting entertainment on television.
Exactly, and not even as entertaining as the Vietnam War. I was thinking the other day, the Vietnam War was much better TV than this is. And that's probably because the press had more involvement then, and they were given opportunities to really deeply investigate.
Well, they didn't have to be embedded with the troops. They were allowed to go and photograph and do what they wanted for honest coverage and get it out to the public.
Right.
They didn't have to camouflage and disallow any pictures of the caskets, the massive amount of caskets coming home, and the damage and the atrocities that were being done. It was honestly reported on.
Mm-hmm.
Our media has been silenced.
I know, we're going backward at a rapid rate.
Completely crippled. If we had honest reporting right now that was the reporters that had been able to photograph and get the information out to the public, I think it'd be a totally different situation. I think our college students, if nothing else, would have been a lot more vocal during all this time. Without that key component, people don't pay as much attention.
They don't have as much to see.
It doesn't prick their conscience as much.
Right.
That's the reason.
Mm-hmm.
The media needs to be the Jiminy Cricket of people. Without that, it's like a robotic citizenry we have.
Mm-hmm.
They're dulled to the reality of what's going on with all the atrocities throughout the entire Middle Eastern area,
Mm-hmm.
and now going into Philippines and Sudan and all over the place.
And not only that, but we have been taught to sort of despise the people who are trying to bring the truth. The whistleblowers.
Yes.
Edward Snowden. Remember when he first spoke his piece about what he had learned. the country just split. Half the country said, oh, he's a hero, and the other half said, no, he's a traitor.
Well, and prior to that, Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning, heroes both in my book, John Kirioko, Thomas Drake, Ray McGovern, Jesselyn Raddick, Susan Lindauer, Colleen Rowley. The list goes on and on and on.
And on. But we've been told that these people are disloyal and that they're creating the problems that they're reporting on.
Worse yet, traitors. And
Yeah.
nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
All they're doing, exposing government wrongdoing and exposing the things that the American public has a right to know. And our next episode that we'll be filming right after this one is on Colleen Rowley and the group that we just talked about that are right now talking about and standing up for repealing the NDAA, the National Defensive Authorization Act. So that'll be in our next segment. Don't miss.
Yeah.
Okay, in conjunction with what's going on at Camp Ripley, in this document, I discovered last night that not only is white phosphorus used at Camp Ripley, but so is red phosphorus. Now, the white phosphorus, in this document, it's on page 34, it's item 10.3.4, restrictions on firing white phosphorus. It says, firing of white phosphorus is prohibited in sensitive wetland areas within the Leach and Hendrickson impact areas. Do not fire white phosphorus, will not be fired directly into or within 100 meters or have airburst directly over wetland areas.
Can we talk about white phosphorus for a moment? There's a lot of people who don't know what a dangerous, weird thing it is.
Well, white phosphorus can be fired from above or out of a cannon or from below. This is what it looks like. It's got those long streamers of white associated with it. This is a burst that is coming from the ground. Okay, so those are two visuals.
What is phosphorus used for?
White phosphorus is a material made from a common allotrope of the chemical element phosphorus. Other common names include WP and the slang term Willie Pete, which is dated from its use in Vietnam and still sometimes used in military jargon. An incendiary weapon, white phosphorus burns fiercely and can ignite cloth, fuel, ammunition, and other combustibles. In addition to its offensive capabilities, white phosphorus is also highly efficient smoke-producing agent, burning quickly and producing an instant blanket of smoke. That's why so many pyrotechnics, the things that could produce smoke for flares and things that are put out smoke,
and
right, have white phosphorus in them because it creates this big cloud of smoke. White phosphorus munitions are very common, particularly as smoke grenades for infantry loaded in grenade launchers on tanks and other armored vehicles, or as part of the ammunition allotment or for artilleries and mortars. These create smoke screens to mask movement, position of the original fire of the enemy. Now,
and this is not just a cloud of smoke. It also has a lingering chemical effect. It has an ecological effect, never good, which is why they're prohibiting from using it over wetlands.
in fact, it burns right through the skin. And when they send off these bombs from above, the little things that are connected with it, once they hit something, don't burn out quickly or easily. And somewhere in here I have a picture of the lesions that can be left on the skin.
I don't know if I'm dying to see that.
Okay. How I might be exposed to white phosphorus. Breathing contaminated air near a facility that's using white phosphorus. It's pretty scary. And that Little Falls is only 4 miles from Camp Ripley, and the surrounding property is very close to where this stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Eating contaminated fish or game birds from sites containing white phosphorus. How many people fish in little creeks or streams that are connected with the runoff of Camp Ripley?
Mm-hmm.
How many people fish and eat the fish from the Mississippi River, which is runs right through Camp Ripley or on the edge of Camp Ripley. Touching soil contaminated with white phosphorus, drinking or swimming in water that has been contaminated with white phosphorus. How can white phosphorus affect my health? Little information is available about the health effects that may be caused by white phosphorus. Most of what's known about the effects of breathing white phosphorus is from studies of workers. Most of what's known about the effects of eating white phosphorus is from reports of people eating rat poison or fireworks that contained it. Breathing white phosphorus for short periods may cause coughing or irritation of the throat and lungs. Breathing white phosphorus for long periods of time may cause a condition known as phossy jaw, which involves poor wound healing of the mouth and breakdown of the jawbone. Eating or drinking of small amounts of white phosphorus may cause liver, heart, or kidney damage, vomiting, stomach cramps, drowsiness, or death. We do not know what the effects are from eating or drinking very small amounts of white phosphorus containing substances over long periods of time. Skin contact with burning white phosphorus may burn skin or cause liver, heart, or kidney damage. They don't know what the effects on children are either. That document goes on to say.
And they're not talking about long-term effects, they're talking about short-term effects now, but of course there are long-term effects that are usually worse.
So now would be a good time to talk about some more stuff that I have found in this document.
That's right, this episode is called What the Ripley Reporter Will Not Tell You.
Yeah, they'll be sure not to tell you this, and I can assure you one thing, I haven't researched the maps where the bombing that is used, the white phosphorus and red phosphorus and other things are used. That's well hidden from the public. They're not about to be allowing this bombing of any type of grenade launching or stuff that's incendiary that's set off on the ground within the public eye.
Right.
Because the public would be freaking out if that news got out. My hope is that people will take note of the information that I'm sharing, because this could directly affect their health. Could be affecting all of our health as we speak. This is on page 41 of this document, and it's titled Chapter 13, Chemical Agents, Smoke, and Aircraft Spray. And I'm just going to read blips out of here, the important stuff that I highlighted last night. Under item 13.1.5, item B, HC, hexachloroethane, zinc. HC smoke can kill if improperly used. This smoke contains corrosive substances that can destroy lung tissue, causing the lungs to fill with fluid in a condition known as dry land drowning. In some cases, the body can also be poisoned by zinc metal oxide in the smoke. The problem's symptomatic effects are usually delayed. Soldiers do not realize they inhale too much until hours or even days after the exposure.
Well,
RP, item number C, RP, red phosphorus. Item number D, white phosphorus. Item number E, colored and diesel smokes. Item number F, all riot agents. Authorized riot agents on Camp Ripley are, this is item number 13.2.3, item A, CS, item B, CSX, item C, CS-1, D, CS-2, E, CR. I don't know what those are yet, haven't had time to look them up. Item number 13.26, riot control agents will not be used under conditions that are dangerous to life or property. The use of riot control agents is limited to 1,200 meters from Camp Ripley boundaries, 500 meters from the nearest heavily traveled road, and 1,200 meters from the cantonment area ammunition supply point Miller Army Field. Unprotected personnel will not be exposed to riot control agents for longer than 15 seconds. Number 13.3, smoke. The use of smoke in training poses special health and safety issues. Going on to page 43, non-lethal weapons. Department of Defense Directive, DODD 3000.3 defines non-lethal weapons, NLW, as weapons that are explicitly designed and primarily employed so as to incapacitate personnel or material while minimizing fatalities, permanent injury to personnel, and undesired damage to property and the environment. Item 14.2.2, the term non-lethal does not mean zero mortality or non-permanent damage. Fatal injuries can occur if munitions are employed at a distance that's less than determined minimum safe engagement range. 14.2.3, the inter-service non-lethal individual weapons instructors course is the only course in the Department of Defense that is certified to produce instructors who train individuals in the proper employment of non-lethal weapons. What that means is Camp Ripley is the only place that's training instructors on the use of non-lethal weaponry. Pretty profound.
Yeah, it is. Wow, wow.
Item number 14.2.5, less lethal weapons concept of training. Item A, to train units from the individual level up to the commands level on the usage and employment of less lethal technology, both in civil disturbance and combat operations. So the training that's done throughout the entire nation, if it has to do with the Department of Defense or the military, no trained instructors can be trained anywhere except at Camp Ripley on how to use non-lethal weaponry for civil disturbances or combat operations.
So all over the United States.
Well, the instructors are coming right out of Camp Ripley.
Wow.
If they're DOD certified, Department of Defense certified, they can only get that training at Camp Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting. That means, folks, that the law enforcement officers and anybody else that's receiving training how to do crowd control or riot control have likely been trained by someone who took the training course at Camp Ripley.
At Camp Ripley. So it's a defense. It's a Department of Defense course, which is, we've talked before about the militarization of peacekeeping units in the United States police departments. This is certainly a classic example of it.
This training is based on doctrine, tactics, techniques, and procedures. It does not replace the commander's lethal capability. The use of less lethal adds to the number of options a commander can use. It gives a course of action when the use of lethal force may not be the best call for the situation. Troops training with EMDs, X-26 and X-26E taser are not authorized to take a live stun from an EMD. So our soldiers, it says, it is prohibited to use on United States soldiers by the Department of the Army. So
Isn't there some kind of a controversy once about people using tasers on each other just to sort of get the feel of the weapon?
right, but the military doesn't want any soldiers being tased because...
Oh, let's save that for the civilians.
Okay, OC spray training must be done by strict DOD standard using INIWIC instructor. OC spray training will not be done inside of a building or enclosed structure. That's, I haven't looked that one up yet, I don't think. Okay, so no, authorized weapon use at Camp Ripley are these items. And some of them I had time to research this morning, some I didn't. M320, FN303 caliber, or it says CAL period, I'm assuming that's caliber. VADs, and what that is Vulcan Air Defense System, and those were used in the Vietnam War. Wave technology, light technology, acoustic technology, tasers, OC spray, which is actually pepper spray, so I got that information this morning. Shotgun 12-gauge multi-launchers, VMS modular crowd control, M315.
What is an M315? Is that a plane?
I don't know, I haven't had time to look it up yet. 12-gauge beanbag, fin stabilizer, another fin stabilizer, crowd dispersal, rubber ball, a foam baton, sponge grenade, rubber ball grenade, an M5 MCCM, a 12-gauge launching cartridge, a stun grenade, M315 munitions, it says, flashbang, non-lethal blunt trauma, beanbag.
And these are all approved for crowd control.
Yes, and I didn't get a chance to print the information on these very frightening things, folks, called wave technology, light technology, and acoustic technology, as well as this modular crowd control, but it's really scary stuff. And I'll report on that the next time. I just didn't have a time to dig any further.
There's a lot of material here.
Yeah, that's as far as I could go with all of that. Now, because we know there's proof that they're using all those agents out there, including white phosphorus, red phosphorus, and my guess is there's a lot of other stuff that's contaminants that are out there, including percolates, nitrates, RDX, and different ethers and all kinds of stuff. I didn't bring all those documents with, but it's scary stuff. And anybody that believes that the firing of more than 14,000 troops for a period of almost a half a year in one location isn't creating enough hazards that are collecting in the trees and in the soil and in the waters, all the waters, the groundwater, the lakes, the rivers, the streams, Mississippi, all of it that's close by, the leaves on the trees, the grasses, everything that's out there is getting permeated with all of these toxins for half a year, okay? Where does that stuff go? Where does it have to go? One of three places: in the air, in the ground, the soil,
Or the water.
in the water. Oh, the fourth is in the trees and leaves and the stuff that is surrounding, okay?
So what you're saying here is that Camp Ripley represents a battlefield to the power of 100, because in no other battlefield in the world have we ever had 6 months of deployment of weapons.
Well, it starts, I don't know when they actually start their live fire exercises. I think maybe in May or June. So that'd be May, June, July, August, September. You know, close to half a year.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, all summer long, some of the spring, and most of the fall. It's really, I think, unbelievable that this local area hasn't paid more attention with all the problems with phosphorus and nitrates in our groundwater. And all that's being suspected is the farming and perhaps some of the industry, really?
Yeah,
People can't connect the dots and understand that this stuff has to go somewhere.
yeah.
They can't seem to grasp the fact that the military has the largest carbon footprint in the world. And somehow, because of this wonderful economic impact and the bombs bursting in air and all the star-struck envisionment that, oh, the local people that are employed by Camp Ripley, all that overshadows all the stuff that's being spewed into our air.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, what happened just yesterday on April 27th? They had another major burn out of camp.
Did they?
So when they burn all of those residues that are left over in the soil and in the water and in the ground and on the grasses and on the tree leaves and everything that's been permeated with all this crap that's being spewed,
Uh-huh.
goes in the direction of whatever's downwind.
Right.
There's not one military base anywhere that the health impacts aren't prolific within a 10-mile radius of live fire exercise. That's a fact. You can look it up for yourself. Don't believe me. Get your information yourself, folks. But I can tell you that the health impacts to all of us here in a 10-mile radius of all of this stuff going on have to be pretty prolific. And we have Live Better, Live Longer group that's connected with St. Gabriel's Hospital. Major Donovan was at least last year on that board. No small coincidence there.
Before we go any further, let's tell folks how they can get a hold of this information. We keep telling them to look it up for themselves. Website?
Well, there are many.
Okay.
But if you put into your search engine on Google or Bing or whatever, health ramifications or health impacts of everyone within a 10-mile radius of live fire military exercises, you'll be shocked at what it'll bring up.
Okay.
I mean, I probably put in a lot of other things and I can't even remember what all now, but if you
Well, I was
start
thinking
there...
about this report itself.
Oh,
Where can
that...
they go to get that?
Oh,
Just so that they can see that you're
that is, all you have to do is put in range regulate 2015 CRTC range regulation.
2015 CRTC range regulation.
That's what the document looks like.
So you can see what she's talking about.
State of Minnesota, the Department of Army, Camp Ripley, Minnesota, 1 October 2014, that's the date of this. Okay, now, just last night I discovered this in the Star Tribune. Tainted drinking water is costing Minnesota taxpayers millions. Randall's water emergency is the latest sign of an environmental problem in Minnesota. Now, Randall is how many miles from here? Up the road?
Just 15, no less than
10,
that.
10 miles or so, I think,
Yeah.
from here. Nitrogen fertilizer is leaching into groundwater from farm fields, contaminating wells and costing taxpayers millions of, and then it says, in a door-knocking sweep reminiscent of the movie Aaron Brockovich, officials in Randall, Minnesota visited every household in town last month, warning families about poison in their water supply. Now, Randall, City of Randall is extraordinarily close to the west end, the whole west end of Camp Ripley. And all this stuff that's going on with the bombing ranges out there. And nobody's suspecting that some of the nitrate levels in the other compounds that are in the drinking water might be related to what's happening at Camp Ripley?
Yeah.
Really? Folks can't connect the dots?
Well, you know, a lot of people think of Camp Ripley as this sleepy little place where people just, you know, kind of stroll through. They don't know how much stuff is going on there, and they don't know how serious and important Camp Ripley is to the military, to the U.S. military.
Exceedingly high nitrate levels had turned up in one of Randall's 2 municipal wells, and all 637 people in the north central Minnesota community received bold-faced notices that infants were at risk of a potentially fatal blood condition.
Oh my gosh.
The well was no good. They learned, and the town would have to buy a new one. I was shocked, said Joseph Ellis, a Randall resident. We don't drink this water anymore. Randall's water emergency is the latest sign of an environmental problem in Minnesota. Nitrogen fertilizer is leaching into groundwater from farm fields, contaminating wells, and costing taxpayers millions of dollars a year. 16 communities have violated the state health limit for nitrates, and half have installed expensive nitrate removal system at a cost per household of $3,300 or more. Communities are spending even more money to help keep nitrate local levels in check. More than 45 of them are working with the Department of Health to slow or reverse nitrate pollution in their public water systems, including towns that bought out nearby farmers to remove cropland from atop their well fields. In addition, the Health Department annually fines violations of the nitrate standard in non-community wells like systems like schools, resorts, and highway rest areas. Last year alone, 14 of those places exceeded the nitrate limit. This is a real problem in our state, folks. And I have no proof of this, and there probably is no way to prove anything, because the truth is, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency or any other environmental protection agency has no authority over what Camp Ripley does.
No, Camp Ripley is pretty much
they're an island to themselves.
An island to themselves.
They can do whatever they want. And I asked Kevin Maurer if he had any knowledge of any stormwater runoff filters at all in place of any of the groundwater that leaves Camp Ripley, and he didn't know. But the next step in my investigation of all of this is to get the Morrison County Water Comprehensive Plan and investigate and see what, if any, checks and balances there might be out there. In about one community a year, as in Randall, mitigation efforts fail. Roughly 3 out of 4 Minnesotans live in communities served by well water, and the Minnesota Department of Health will emphasize the nitrates problem in its upcoming Drinking Water Protection Annual Report. Agency officials say nitrates afflict a significant amount of the state's 729 municipal well systems serving towns, cities, and mobile home parks. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture is rolling out a new nitrogen management plan for farmers, the latest attempt to solve a pollution problem now 40 years old. For decades, federal law has limited nitrates in Minnesota's drinking water to no more than 10.4 parts per million. besides causing a condition called blue baby syndrome, which reduces oxygen supply in the blood of infants under 6 months. The National Cancer Institute has suggested a link between elevated nitrate levels in drinking water and an increased risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Some communities are worried about pesticides as well. While state regulators have not detected pesticides in public service wells, some groundwater experts like Barry Shade contend that elevated nitrate levels can signal the presence of pesticides and their breakdown products, at least in private wells. If they are drinking water contaminated by all agriculture nitrates, chances are good they're also drinking a cocktail of agricultural pesticides. In extreme southwestern Minnesota, Lincoln Pipestone Rural Water has been fighting nitrates since the 1990s and now faces a new expense. In nitrate removal system cleans local drinking water but produces its own contaminated effluent, which until now has been dumped raw into the Pipestone Creek. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is demanding action on that secondary problem, which would cost $2 million to $4 million, according to Jason Overby, operations manager for the water system. In Park Rapids, your hometown, where potatoes and other crops grow nearby on irrigated sandy soil, state health officials declared violations of the nitrate limit in 2 separate municipal wells in 2009 and 10. Those wells have been shut down, but the city received a $2 million state loan and grant package to dig a new, deeper well that requires removal of iron and manganese. There's broad agreement that preventing nitrate contamination is cheaper than removing it from water or drilling new wells. Nitrate contamination has even surfaced close to the Twin Cities. In Hastings, where nitrate concentrations in 2 wells approached the safe drinking water standard, in 2010 the city opened a treatment plant for water from those wells and now blends it with water from cleaner wells to create a safe supply. And this is going to clean water and getting the stormwater runoff pollution out of our the 5 different areas that dump into the Mississippi here locally and in Morrison County are going to be a big upcoming battle and problem for this area.
Right.
I want to remind folks that I wrote, and I won't read this whole thing, but I wrote a letter to the editor in the Little Falls paper, I think about this, but I couldn't find it last night, but also the Brainerd Dispatch. The one that I wrote is titled List the Toxins. It was written back in April 18th of 2014, and I'll just give you a couple little blips off here. I've been concerned about this for some period of time. By his own admission in Camp Ripley, an environmental model, Colonel St. Sauver states, hazardous waste generated on Camp Ripley during operations are not disposed of on the installation. They are carefully packaged and shipped to a permitted treatment and disposal facility. We do conduct live fire of all small and large caliber weapons systems, including tanks, cannons, and rockets. Lest anyone question live fire practice dangerous to soldiers and downwinders, his statement is proof. His alarming analogy, cradle to grave, used to describe Camp Ripley's management of hazardous materials to ensure environmental protection, requires questioning. How many victims will these toxins claim? Munitions constituents are explosives and propellants originating from military munitions and include nitroamines, such as RDX, nitroaromatics, such as TNT, nitrate esters, such as nitroglycerin, and percolate. These can accumulate in shallow soils as a result of military activity on ranges. They can also migrate through surface and groundwater to off-range receptors. White phosphorus is used by the military in various types of ammunition and to produce smoke for concealing troop movements and identifying targets. Eating or drinking small amounts of white phosphorus may cause liver, heart, or kidney damage, vomiting, stomach cramps, drowsiness, or death. The EPA has listed white phosphorus as a hazardous air pollutant. So that's about that. Now, we won't have time to get into all this, but I want people to look this up. It's dated May 3rd, 2013. It's titled, Israel's Illegal Use of White Phosphorus During Operation Cast Lead. It's written by Jeremy R. Hammond. And it talks about white phosphorus munitions are not prohibited under international law, but they are not supposed to be used in civilian areas because white phosphorus is highly flammable, and like napalm, it can burn flesh. White phosphorus in civilian areas is prohibited under international laws. It is an incontrovertible fact that Israel violated international law with its use of white phosphorus. White phosphorus can burn down houses, cause horrific burns when it touches the skin, said Mark Garlasco, senior military analyst at HRW, noting that when white phosphorus munitions burst in the air, they spread 116 burning wafers over an area between 125 and 250 meters in diameter. That's what I was trying to remember the term, but it's burning wafers. And so that's all I have with that. And we're doing good for time here, so we're going to delve in a little bit further to this issue of Ramstein, Germany, where we left off with our last episode. And I am going to turn this over to Theresa to read the rest of the highlighted information here because this is really good information.
Some legal scholars in Germany are not satisfied with that response, and that would be the response.
Well, Ramstein, Germany is the base that is coordinating the drone assassinations via an underwater cable and satellite communication. Creech Air Force Base and Beale and other bases that are doing illegal, according to international law, drone assassinations in Middle Eastern and all over the countries and all over the world. Ramstein Air Base is the coordinating piece so that they don't have this lag time between the time that the pilot sitting in a trailer out in the desert
In Nevada.
when they fire the go button to kill somebody way across the ocean.
They argue, that if U.S. personnel based at Ramstein are involved in what the government considers an extrajudicial killing in a non-declared war zone, they would not be entitled to immunity, at least not on German soil. The NATO status of forces agreement explicitly grants German authorities the right to investigate members of the U.S. military suspected of having committed a crime. So this is it's becoming a pretty important locus of discussion. Germany's figured prominently in the American drone war from the very beginning. In 2000, the U.S. Air Force launched an initiative to explore arming drones the same year that the CIA, contemplating the assassination of Osama bin Laden, began using unarmed predators to try to track the high-value target. It was through this surveillance project that a scientist working with the CIA and the U.S. military devised a prototype for what would become the system for operating drones from half a world away that endures to this day.
Now, I want to make sure that people see this. This is a picture of the shadow drones that Camp Ripley's training on, okay? They are used in they're used for target acquisition for the bombings done by, this is the Reaper, and also the Predator drones, the larger drones. But more importantly, and I don't have a picture of it because at the time I made this picture,
She's in there somewhere.
I didn't realize that they also can and they're being weaponized. They carry their own bombs, okay? So, it's important for people to remember that drone swarms in the future are likely going to be inclusive of these littler drones that are weaponized as of a couple of years ago already. They are legal. They are not legal. They are lethal assassinators in themselves. They can fire a bomb that will kill someone, a person. They can eliminate some types of vehicles, maybe even take out some buildings. They carry between 5 and 13-pound bombs made by Raytheon and maybe some others. Can you lift that up, Theresa?
I don't think, I think they can see it better if I don't.
But there's something on the back I want to show people, because
Yeah.
drone swarms are a thing of the future. And this is a picture of the hummingbird drone. And it took 5 years to develop this. It weighs less than a AA battery.
You're out of camera range.
Oh,
Oh, wait,
Okay.
wait, he's adjusting for you. No, he's not.
can you see this here now?
This is a hummingbird.
They're little. They're like the size, and they look like a hummingbird. And they cost $4 million to, sorry, there we go.
Perfect.
$4 million to produce or get these up and running. And I believe that these, amongst other ones that look like bees and all kinds of other little birds and critters, are going to be flying in mass to who knows what, assassinate people with little poison darts. I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do.
Here's another picture of this. This is one type of drone swarm,
The technology is getting cheaper and cheaper.
right?
For them to produce these things, the small ones can cost, what was it you were saying, $1? Or that's the projected cost?
Right. This is a Fire Scout. This is another drone, and I think those can be armed as well. This is an aerostat, 200 feet long, 65 feet across the hull, and this is like a surveillance, big kind of a drone. I don't know if it can be weaponized, I can't remember. This is a X-47B, 38 feet long, 64-foot wingspans. Oh, that's a Reaper. I think I already showed you that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big there. You have this one?
Hand me that one, please. Ah, yes. Okay, so this is Predator, the other large assassinator drone that most people are familiar with. Here's the Global Hawk.
44 feet long, 160.
This is one of the bigger drones.
Yeah. So we were talking about the affordability of drones and how they're getting cheaper and cheaper. There's something you said a day or two ago that caught my attention. You said you've got a $6 million piece of equipment out there. It's very vulnerable. It's a whole bunch of money tied up in something that can be just bombed to pieces. Or you can have $6 million $1 machines. That there are so many, and they're so mobile that they can't all be destroyed at once.
Well, some of the information that I've just had a few moments to research is that there's, and it's in the not the Brilliant Warrior, it's in one of the drone swarm documents of the Air Force, that they've got some kind of little prototype thing that's going to be very small, paper thin, really tiny, will cost about $1 to produce, but if they buy 1 billion of them, those swarms of 1 billion of those, they can afford to take a lot of them out. If only one of those little things in the swarm gets through to take out the enemy, or if a number of them get through to penetrate and take out the enemy, then the military exercise will have been accomplished, the mission will have been accomplished. This is one of the most important signs that I ever made, and I hope that Chris can get it on here. It says, "Please God, don't let a drone kill my family or my dog." And the fact is, folks, that there are people in other areas of the world whose little kids go to bed in fear every night with these drones, our United States drones, hovering above them, never knowing when they're going to strike. And it's incredible how much trauma, emotional trauma there is going on in other nations' little children's head every night. And I read somewhere that some parents in the areas where the drones are bombing threaten their children that if they don't go to sleep, there might be a drone that might come upon them if they don't go to sleep.
There's the boogeyman for you.
And
We were
again,
talking yesterday about post-traumatic stress disorder and how people who've been in combat are coming home with PSTD. But the truth is, if the combat is happening in your backyard, then civilians must be experiencing PTSD as well. But it'll take a generation for all of that to.
there's a huge rise on people being treated in the nations where our drones are hovering for all type of emotional disorders, and they're needing to pass out drugs to keep the citizenry calm there. People have nightmares about this stuff. Kids can't concentrate. They can't go to school. And like our friends in the Nonviolent Peace Force, like Anne Frisch, who came here and spoke at the first annual Central Minnesota Peace and Diversity Fair, said, when in a community there is no peace, people can't get to school, they can't get their groceries, they can't many times go to the bathroom if the bathroom isn't located in their house, they can't go visit neighbors, they can't conduct their normal community gatherings, they can't
Make a living.
They can't make a living. It affects every part of their life.
Yeah.
And folks, it boils down to this. Why in the world are we not, why is our military and our government and our leaders, all the way from Little Falls to Washington, D.C., not planning for the time of peace? Not orchestrating everything we do to come to a point in our lifetime
That's what Larry was saying
where
yesterday.
peace can be accomplished. Why don't we have that as a national goal? If Venezuela cannot attack another nation in more than 2 centuries, in over 200 years, why in the world can't we?
And yet for the next 50 years, the United States does not even provide for the possibility of peace in its long-term plans. The question is not will there be peace, but how will we be conducting war in 25 years, and 35 and 45 years? It's just assumed we will be.
Right. And just so that the viewers know, I will be coming back to this document with more information. I want to talk about the lasers that are being used out there, likely for bombing. I don't think they're just spying on each other with lasers. Underground trainer, I want to try to find out what that is. The tactical mine lane, the breach live fire, the IED petting zoo, the breach facility. There's a gas chamber out at Camp Ripley. I'd like to do some research and get an answer as to what that gas chamber is for. A demolition site, a breach, a SEAL camp.
This is all according to their own information, by the way.
Right, POW camp, and lots of other stuff that will be proving to be very interesting in that document. Join us again.
For Can We Talk, and we'll be talking more about that document and many other subjects. We'll be looking forward to seeing you again. I'm Theresa Skorseth. This is Robin Hensel.
Thanks
And
for
we'll see you soon.
watching.